Okay, time to do some two-point perspective sketching. Two-point perspective sketching, if you Google some examples, it reminds me of a street corner. Like that's the thing that pops up the most. So you can imagine kind of sketching a building on the corner of two streets. And the way it works is there's actually, you can see it in this drawing. There are two vanishing points, and these points are on the horizon. So you see, this is a really good example because the horizon is where the Earth meets the sky. So you can see that all these depth, the depth for all of these objects lead back to this vanishing point and this vanishing point. So here are a couple other examples. You can see the vanishing point here, vanishing point here. I like this barn one, it's really good. The vanishing point for this drawing is actually off the page. It's somewhere that's right here on the right side. And over here, it looks like it's right about here or so. So the idea is like you like to use this when you're looking at the corner. This is a nice one. You're looking at the corner of a 3D object, and it sort of reminds me of an isometric sketch, but without the parallel depth lines. So let's go ahead and try to draw a few things in two-point perspective. I'm going to ask you to be able to draw a cube in two-point, and then I'm going to draw something else that's a little bit more complicated on the right side. So over here on the left side, I'm going to draw a cube. So whenever you draw something in two-point perspective, you always want to start with a corner. So we're going to start with a corner of our cube, and we're going to pretend that our vanishing points are, here's the horizon over here. So a vanishing point right here, and we'll say the other vanishing point right here is right here. Pretend that this is like the Sears Tower or something that you're trying to draw in perspective with the sunset or something like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to connect. Actually, you know what I'm going to do real quick here? I'm going to make my Sears Tower a little bit smaller. So this is kind of like a helicopter view of the Sears Tower at sunset. We start with the corners. So there's going to be a corner here. We want to go this corner through the vanishing point and also the other corner next to the vanishing point. And we're going to do the same thing with the other vanishing points. So over here and over here. All right, so these should be construction lines. All right. If this is the Sears Tower, it's kind of like a rectangular prison. So I said a cube before, but I think we're going to do a rectangular prison for this one. So we're going to try to like make the thing kind of look like a prism, like a building, right? So we got to give it some depth. So I gave it a little bit of depth, kind of like a skyscraper would look like. And now it's starting to look a little bit more like a building. I'm going to clean up some of my construction lines as I go with two-point perspective. With one-point perspective, I clean them all to the end. But for two-point, it's nice to kind of clean them as you go. So there we go. And that's good. Perfect. All right. So we're looking better now. But we have to make the top of the skyscraper, right? So I'm going to take this corner right here and go through this vanishing point and go do the same thing with the other corner of the building. This point right here through this vanishing point. All right, so what we can see is that my building is not, maybe because I'm not using a ruler. Maybe I should try that one more time. I don't know, I guess it's a little bit better, but if I was doing this on paper, I'd use a ruler, but I'm using a smartboard, so I can't do that. So now we have our, basically, we're finished with this. We could do more lines if we wanted to. Like there's a hidden line that goes like this to that vanishing point, and the same thing here. And we could erase some of the construction lines that we made in order to kind of make some hidden lines, but we're not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and erase these construction lines right here. So that way we're cleaning it all up. And if we really wanted to, we could, draw like antennae on top of it or something. Here we go. There's the Sears Tower. Beautiful, right? You could draw a street. Here's a street right here. And notice that these depth lines should actually go to our vanishing point. So they're actually kind of like coming together. Here's the middle of the street, right? So there you go. That's kind of like how you would make a rectangular prism. It sort of looks like a building. All right, so let's make a more complicated object. Let's do an L, so a 3D L. So we're going to start with the corner of the L, like this, okay? This one's a little bit harder because there's kind of more to do. There's more edges and corners and everything. But for all of these, we want to make sure our vanishing points are, let's make them kind of like parallel. Say that the horizon is like right here, parallel with the horizon. And you do the same thing that you did with the rectangular prism. You take each of your depth lines and you go through the vanishing point. Okay. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to kind of give it some depth. I'm going to make this, so the L is going to, this is kind of like the L right here. If we were doing this in an oblique, it would look like this, and then I'd give it some depth, right? And then I'd erase my construction lines. So that's, oops. So this is kind of what we're going for, except this is an oblique. So we don't want an oblique, we want it a 2-point perspective. Sort of like we're looking at the corner, sort of like we're looking like at it right here. So this is you looking at it, very happy. All right, so we got to give it some depth. So this is going to be the L, like the top, like the long part of the L, and we can also kind of like think like where this point right here, right? We need to kind of figure out what that's going to be. So let's make that like right here, okay? So let's clean up some construction lines before we go to before we draw this line right here. Clean it up. Okay. So we have some more lines to draw. Let's draw this one right here first. That's kind of like the top of the L. And we'll draw this bad boy. That's kind of like the part of the L that goes backwards. So it's sort of like this line that we're drawing. And we have some vertical lines we need to make. So this is going to be kind of like the bottom part of the L. So kind of like right here. And we also have to kind of make the vertical line that goes up. That's sort of like that line. And now we have to clean up again because we're getting a little messy here. Let's make it look more like the L that we know and love. So this is going to be tough, but we'll kind of sneak in there. All right, so we'll get rid of this line, that one, and let's also erase some of this stuff up here. All right. So now we got to go back to our other vanishing point to finish the top of the L. So we got to finish the top of the L and also this plane right here. So I'm going to go from this point through the vanishing point, and now we got a nice top to our L. And we got to go from this point right here to our vanishing point as well. Oh man, it just our construction line just kind of screwed our drawing up. I think what I'm gonna do. Well, let's see. Let's try to erase some of these construction lines. So like in here, kind of like in there. We'll clean this up a little bit. This is kind of like that now. Okay, that looks all right. We got one more line to make. So unfortunately, like this doesn't quite look right, like this plane. So let's get rid of this little arrow here. We have to go back to our vanishing point through this point right here. Okay. So what we're gonna do is this is a hidden line for most of it. So most of the time it's a hidden line, right? And that right here it's not hidden, and it goes through our vanishing point like that. Okay. So I'm going to try to clean this up a little bit. It doesn't look great, but sort of get the idea here. We'll clean this part up. And these hidden lines, I mean, I don't really want them in there. But a little messy because I'm not using a pencil. And that's kind of the basics of making a three-dimensional object. I mean, it kind of looks like a building too. So you could, if you're really into it, you could start like make a street. You know, oops, let me redraw that. Your street should also go through your vantage point. So, you know, kind of like that. Sort of like a really steep depth line here, but kind of get the point. So, it'd be something like this, right? Something like that. You can make your middle of the street, make cars, whatever you want to do. So that's kind of like, looks sort of like a building. There we go. That actually looks more like the Sears Tower than this was probably the Hancock Center, right? Hancock. And here's the Willis Tower or Sears Tower. All right. Okay, so that's kind of the basics of 2-point perspective. There's a 3-point, but we're not going to go over that in class. But hopefully now you can at least make a cube or a rectangular prism and maybe make some more complicated shapes to get good at it.